Organizations that put up thought leadership content are trustworthy based on their capabilities and competencies, as opposed to marketing material. 42% of decision makers are willing to pay a premium for brands that put out thought leadership content. 42%. What is the definition of thought leadership? The guy who came up with the concept of thought leadership is called Joel Katzman. He was an editor at a magazine. He did this in 1994. So he says thought leaders are those people who possess a distinctively original idea, a unique point of view, or unprecedented insight into their industry. Again, this is 1994. We are in 2024, 30 years ago. So we looked around and tried to find a definition that is a bit more current, that kind of connects with what is happening within the industry. Thought leadership is an intentional exercise of knowledge, skills, and expertise to increase awareness, elevate perception, and drive preference related to key issues that an audience cares about. We know definitions don't tell the entire story. So we worked towards how can we be able to unpack this, just properly understand exactly what thought leadership is about. So from a business point of view, basically, we know it's going to change perception of the brand or repair reputation. We know the work that has been done, for example, by organizations, especially the guys within the oil and gas industry, post the oil spills and how they try to do a couple of thought leadership pieces, or even around the issues around green energy and how they've been trying to reposition themselves. When you put out thought leadership content, obviously as well, it builds trust and credibility. Some of the brands that are there that have consistently done that is like, for example, Nike. So it also mitigates the impact of shrinking newsrooms and media blind spots. It also attracts the best talent. Who would not want to work at Nike? As in the guys. Who would not want to work in some of the organizations that we're talking about? Yeah. And it also increases business opportunities, such as RFP invitations. It also provides an opportunity for premium pricing and cross-selling. 42% of decision makers are willing to pay a premium for brands that put out thought leadership content. 42%. If I'm willing to pay just a little bit more, and a little bit more is not $5. It's probably I'm willing to put in an additional 1,000, 2,000. It's just about getting your thought leadership content right to get that impact. There's so much more opportunity in terms of why it's important. For them, thought leadership content enhances their perception of that organization, and we've spoken about that. So it creates respect, it improves the perception, and shows them your organizational capabilities. They also feel that organizations that put up thought leadership content are trustworthy based on their capabilities and competencies, as opposed to marketing material. So they would rather engage with content. It doesn't necessarily have to be an editorial piece. Whatever form of storytelling that you decide to choose can still be thought leadership content. That opposed to that marketing material, where it's a product sheet or whatever else form of content that you might have. They also feel that it influences their purchase decision, resulting in them awarding businesses responsible for increasing the amount of their business or purchasing a new product or service that they had not thought about. Again, so if I'm buying one thing from you and I'm seeing that the type of thought leadership content you're having is good, increases the chance by 54%. So obviously we know that there are challenges. One of them is around aligning expectations. I've had an experience where now you have to sit down with each and every individual and understand their point of view. Understand the IT guy who's saying, it is not going to connect with our systems. And then finance is like, this is over your budget. And you go to the user, you go round and round and round. So that aligning of expectations has been hard, because then that's from even trying to just sell. But how do you align expectations even from a thought leadership point of view? There's somebody who's saying within that space, but why aren't you talking about the product or the service? Another challenge is quantity of content, quality of content, and the time in which you're going to be running it. We are trying to get as much content out as possible, rather than focusing on getting the best quality of content to the right audience to give us the results. Yeah. Then we forget that there's also that impact. Rightly said, Because the content is too much from a quantity perspective and it's not quality content, what has happened? It impacts reputation. Audience engagement, we often focus on the engagement metrics. Not everything that counts matters, not everything that matters can be counted. And lastly, attribution. This is the headache for everyone because finance is asking you, but what are the results? How do you actually show there's a value for thought leadership? Thought leadership primarily sits from a brand perspective. It's something that is so much more long-term, that is talking about connecting with the audience emotionally and trying to show values that we stand for and all of this stuff and giving perspective. It's harder to attribute, but it's still important to still be measuring over time. Based on the challenges that we've spoken about, how do we make it work? Starting with the first one, we look at the objectives and the audience. Obviously, you need to agree on the objectives. Alignment, sales, marketing, and any other department there. And defining the audience and focus on what matters to them. The big purchase decisions are typically made, again, we talked about the leadership team. What the person from IT cares about, what the person from finance and ETC cares about, can we drill down? But again, one of the biggest challenges that we have in such situations is that if you're constantly just pushing, buy the product, buy the product, buy the product, versus this is what is happening in that industry. This is our perspective on what is happening. This is the way things can be able to be changed. Or these are the solutions that we need to be thinking about collectively as an organization. Or this is our perspective on how AI, for example, is connecting with that industry. Then there is the element around the buyer journeys. Again, they are not linear. So how are we plugging in at different places? Secondly, problem finding and problem solving. When you're trying to identify our audiences and the campaigns that we're going to be coming up with, we focus on this is what we want as an organization. Consequently, that is what we're going to communicate. Rather than this is a challenge that the audience is experiencing, and this is what the solution that we're recommending. This is a problem. People are scared about how AI is going to be operating within your industry. How can you be able to provide a solution from a thought leadership point of view that may not directly result to you selling your product, maybe today or tomorrow, but is going to have a share of mind within the audience's mind for long term? The third one is don't differentiate, be distinctive. There's a need when you're coming up with thought leadership content, have a clear point of view. It also needs to be research-based. Ensure that whatever you're putting out is memorable, especially with the way the content world is saturated right now. It's about picking the right medium for giving that thought leadership piece, whether it's video or whatever else, picking the right person to communicate that as well. And then obviously as well, new perspectives are highly valued. Whatever content you're going to be putting out needs to influence and inspire. And I feel like this is one thing that Nike has really done. We know one of the reasons why they're able to share what they share is because we've also seen how much they do in terms of R&D, how they're working with athletes to understand what is going to work and etc. This one we've spoken about so much. I'm like, I don't even know. Do we need to talk about it again? That it needs to be long term. 3 months does not exist. 6 months, in fact, for me, I'd say thought leadership is just put your head down, come up with a strategy and let it go for at least a minimum of 2 years. Be consistent. It's not about putting out content today, tomorrow, and then you're just like 2 weeks from now, you're just like, it's too much work. One of the things that ends up being lacking from a thought leadership point of view is that the content is put out, but your audience cannot respond to it, or there's no opportunity for engagement. If you don't provide that feedback mechanism, also as a brand, you're not able to know what your audiences are thinking about. Obviously, have an effective distribution system. Lastly, you need to focus on both the commercial and marketing impact. From a marketing point of view, you may be the one who's driving it, but you need a lot of support from various departments, whether it's sales or whether it's IT, whatever user department, product, or whoever else. If you cannot be able to be clear about what the impact is going to be from both a commercial and marketing point, and when I say marketing, I'm not talking about only numbers, I'm also talking about the brand value, then it becomes hard to sell it to the person. So just make sure you have that clarity. What are the objectives? What is actually going to be measured? Because those are the things that you're also going to be focusing on within your 2-3 year journey.